court order. So you can see this is a very serious thing because it tramples on the rights of individuals to seek justice in a court of law. So this cannot be dismissed as non-substantial or non-substantive changes. They are truly substantive changes. The last example I will give before I still go back to your question is the provision of Section 39, Section 3 of the Act. In that subsection, we see discrepancies in the three documents. For example, the votes and proceedings copy of the House of Representatives mentioned that transaction in the resources is carried out in a particular currency. Then the return from that currency, from that transaction is made. There is an insertion. They inserted another thing that all computations relating to tax shall be in US dollar. Now they added tax in between, and that has a lot of legal implications according to lawyers. So this means that there are substantial changes. That is in addition to the fact that procedurally or constitutionally, Mr. President, according to what the lawyers told us, has no right to alter anything. He has only two options, either to assent to the law, to the bills as passed by the two chambers, or withhold his assent. And but what we see here is a lot of a lot of alterations. If you go through the Act, you will see a lot of changes, a lot. Some of the changes may be grammatical, some may have some implications legally, but then there are few things that have a lot of implications on the citizens. Now, coming back to the question you asked, yes, many people don't understand the workings of taxation. And because they do not understand the workings of the tax system, they are making comments without really understanding the import and implications of the provisions of this new act. I can say truly that if you look at it on paper, there are a lot of benefits and advantages associated with the new law, especially for low and middle income salary earners, because in the old law or tax law, which is probably before today was in use, and maybe from today the new law may be implemented. Now going through the old laws, one would see that yes, there is what is called Consolidated Relief Allowance, CRA, for salary earners. So if you, if the gross, for example, if the gross income of an employee is, let's say, 5 million naira per annum. Now, before tax will be calculated, first, that consolidated relief allowance will be deducted because it is tax. It is not tax deductible. It is a relief that he enjoys. So it is either 200,000 naira or 1% of the annual gross income, whichever one is higher. And for most income earners, as well as middle salary income salary earners, it is the 200,000 naira that is usually used because 1% of their gross annual income is not up to 200,000 naira. So you have 200,000 naira plus 20% of the gross, the annual income. Add together, that is what is not included in the calculation of tax. So when you remove this, you deduct this, then you now begin to talk about what is due based on the bands that have been provided in the old tax. Of course, there are other deductions. For example, maybe NHIS, house, the house levy, and so on. They are all deductible. You have to deduct them before you begin to compute that. But in the new tax now.
Okay, go ahead, finish your point.
Yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead, just finish your point in the new tax now.
Okay, in the new tax law now, this CRA has been abolished. It's no longer there. There is no consolidated relief allowance. However, they have now replaced that consolidated relief allowance with rent relief. So depending on the rent one pays, at least 20% of the rent is now exempted from tax, subject to the maximum of 500,000 naira, because it has been capped at 500,000 naira. So first, for example, if one's gross income per annum is 5 million naira, this issue of rent allowance or rent would be 20% of the total rent one pays per annum will be deducted. It is exempted from tax. Plus the 800,000 naira, threshold, which is also exempted. So if you take anybody, including, for example, Nigerian professors who teach in public in higher institutions, if you take the new and compare it with the old rates, or compare the new tax law with the old tax law, definitely they have some relief because they will pay less tax as against what they are being charged. Because of that 800,000 naira exempt clause, exempt band, that has actually helped. Even though the rent that is now exempted from tax is very small, but because of that 800,000 naira, they stand to benefit a lot.
Okay, Prof, can you hear me?
Yes.
Real quickly. Do you have an harmonized document that you can drop with us here where you itemize all these discrepancies and the work you did on these tax laws? Can I get that document? Can we get that document? Because of television, you expound
Yes,
on all of that.
after this
So,
program.
okay, if you can send it to me so that we can make public.
Yeah, after this program, I can share it with you.
Okay, so just share it with me after the program so we can make public.
I can share it with you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Professor Hamad Dugaya, for your time.
Prof, but before we go, what do you recommend? Because the discrepancies you say,
That is also very important.
well, we don't have more time, but what do you recommend?
Can I go on?
Yes, but briefly, you have
Yeah,
less than a
okay,
minute.
what I'm recommending is, that as it is now, many people have actually raised their observations. They made a lot of observations, and they also raised or expressed their displeasure with the attitude of the federal government that whatever it is, there is no going back. It has come to stay. They will not listen to the voice of Nigerians. I think this is not good, especially for an administration that's always talking about the rule of law and the objective of the tax to protect the poor and give them some support.
No. They had public hearings. And I'm sure as an academic who is interested in this subject, you probably were, at the public hearing. But talk around the whole idea of...
No, I was at the public hearing. I'm not talking about
So don't say they don't want to hear
procedure. I'm
from
talking
the
about
people.
now, after the law has been gazetted.
But those discrepancies, if any, can
But-
be corrected. Whatever discrepancies anybody is pointing to can be corrected. But as an academic, what do you think of the whole idea of reform as a principle of tax reform?
No, reforms are good, provided they are meant to actually serve the interest of the common man and the larger society. So reforms are good. Without reforms, there cannot be development. We definitely need reforms. And in terms of tax reforms, they are actually, timely, because we cannot continue to live in the era of the 60s and 50s. We still have taxes that are denominated in either coins or in kobos. So it means we are really, these reforms are timely and we definitely need them. But what is important is for the reformers or those advocating for the reform to actually comply with the rules of equity and beneficial tax system, because without it, people will definitely not know the importance of these reforms. For example, where maybe you have kind of reliefs and making it much easier for the salary earner to pay less now, but that is on paper, because this tax band have not been indexed against inflationary pressures. So if you look at what we are facing today in terms of inflation, whatever is the gain will just be gobbled by the inflationary inflationary pressure that the country is facing. So it is not just on paper that we say there is relief, there is this, there is that, but also going forward to work it out in a manner that it will be beneficial in all its ramifications.
Okay, thank you, Prof. The test of any law is in its implementation. That's a basic principle. Thank you very much indeed. It's time now for a short break. When we return,